Welcome into the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about this new record from Snow Patrol entitled The Forest is the Path. They released that on September 13th. This is the 8th studio album for the band and their follow-up to 2018's Wildness. Their last record before that, 2011's Fallen Empires, which, depending on which fans you're talking to, seems kind of like an aptly titled record. There's no denying that Gary Lightbody is a fantastic musician, fantastic songwriter. This is his outfit. He is the longest standing member, the only guy that's been there from day one. I'd say there's great chemistry with this three-piece now. Nathan Connolly, Johnny McDade as well. Nathan's been there for a couple decades now, Johnny for over a decade. There's definitely just a good working relationship between these three guys that you can feel. And, you know, Snow Patrol, they're never going to put out a bad record. They are very consistent as far as what they bring to the table. There's two things, I'd argue, that really drive the sound of their music. One I love, and one I have kind of this love-hate relationship with, because there's moments where when they want to work with that pop balladry, it's great. And other times it's just too sugar-coated and I'm not a fan, and it seems really contrived and commercialized, especially, you know, going back and listening to the early days of this band. Really solid indie rock outfit. You listen to records like Songs for Polar Bears and When It's All Over, We Still Have to Clear Up, which, you know, Songs for Polar Bears, a little side note, these guys originally called Polar Bear. We were talking about Jane's Addiction earlier. They changed their name because bass player Eric Avery actually had a band called Polar Bear. A little interesting side note. It's just always funny how things tie together. But this is a band that when Final Straw dropped, I remember being obsessed with that record. The song Run, though, not my favorite. It's good. It's, you know, like there's a lot to like about it. It's got its big soaring hook. It's, it's a pretty song. But this is a band, for me anyways, you listen to those early records, and I think especially too for most American listeners at that time, if you listened to Final Straw and you got into this band, you know, their first two records were really only popular in the UK. So there wasn't a whole lot of like commercial exposure on those albums, but they're very indie oriented. And there's this edgy side of Snow Patrol that I've always loved, and you get a ton of it on Final Straw. But there's that moment with Run with producer Jackknife Lee where I was like, oh, I see the future of this band. And of course, Eyes Open, Chasing Cars. You feature a single on Grey's Anatomy, which I don't blame them for doing it, obviously, but it's still just like they went soft, and I'll die on that molehill. And I know a ton of people that would agree with that. And it's unfortunate too, because the soft side, it feels like there's a lot of moments on records that followed that, you know, that's where they go for their safety zone. That's where they go on records where, you know, they know that they're going to make fans happy, and rightfully so. Like, I listen to that stuff, I'm like, it's good. It sounds great. There's great melodies. There's great musicianship. Lyrically, you know, Gary does have his moments where the focus on romantic love maybe is a bit too much. Like any songwriter, I really appreciate a broader perspective on just life in general. Love song here or there is great, but it's nice to mix it up. It's there's very few albums like I think of Beck's Sea Change just comes to the top of my head where there's very few albums in my opinion where you can really have that drive from start to finish. Blood on the Tracks, Bob Dylan. How could I forget about that? That's another one. But this little safety pocket of pop balladry that Snow Patrol likes to retreat to in albums sometimes, it bugs me. And like, I'll call them out for it. It's one of those things that I really have a love-hate relationship with this band, because I think when they are writing edgier, more angsty, you know, harder rock, that harder, edgier indie sound, they just sound better. I just think that's really where Gary excels, and he's a better songwriter. He talks about this period with Eyes Open and going through these records and how they progressed as musicians and as songwriters, and maybe from a skill standpoint they did, but I think that there's something from a personality standpoint. There's that intangible, like the ghost in the machine comes alive when Gary's more focused on that indie rock element. There's quite a bit of that at work on The Forest is the Path, which, has me pretty stoked. There's another thing about this record, the minimalism that I really enjoy as well. You guys know that, following the show, it's something that I appreciate when bands do it well. A little can go a long way, and Snow Patrol is definitely proving it on this record. It's great to have them around still. Like, just thinking about the time frame, and a lot of bands, like, I mean, Coldplay is incredibly different now, but I think about bands like Travis, whom we talked about recently. Keen editors are a little edgy. I'd say they kind of fall in line more with like Interpol. But, even on the American side, there's bands like The Fray, the Shins. I'd even argue like Death Cab for Cutie. That's where the early stuff, you get more into like that indie side of music at that time. And I really just I feel that Snow Patrol is one of those bands that when they're working with that edge and not so much focused on the pop element, they're doing better. Getting into this thing, all light fade in is quick, piano drive, mid-tempo track, and I love the percussion on this song. Little roll of the snare, has this bit of like an 80s pop feel, which I enjoyed. Soaring chorus on this thing, big vocal hook. You get this slow tremolo guitar that kind of works in. It's kind of just like a mid-tempo tremolo, if you will. It's pretty interesting, but solid album opener. The beginning is your second song, vocal intro with just simple backing guitar. You get light textures that build in, and some soft bass drum that follows. Percussion just rips through the intro when this song goes to work, and I really like the way that the drums get big. This is a good example of them, blending both of those things that I was talking about, and I really enjoyed this song for that reason. So there's some mellow strings that hit, towards the second verse when this thing mellows out, and then it hits back in, and I really like the movement of this song. Your Heart Home, Everything's Here and Nothing's Lost is your third track. Like, get that signature muted guitar that they're kind of known for, which I dig. Like that sort of familiarity. There's some playful parts of this record that made me smile in that regard, and I like that. Guitar with brighter piano. You get the way the vocal just like replaces the piano. I like that shift in the song. Soft textures that flown in and out. You get the piano that returns, and this is a track where really liking the minimalism. I think it's a great example of that. It fills out nicely at about 90 seconds, and the piano is great in those minimal verses. You get this big soaring coda. It's very, very typical. It's very much what you'd expect from this band as far as these guys, they like to pick their moments to go big, and that's something that I think they do well. It's something that I like. Your Heart Home, your fourth track. This is like, I could do without this song. Honestly, this is one of those moments that I feel like they save it a little bit at the end. It becomes a little more rock oriented and a little edgy, but like pulsating synths and piano, they're just bright and poppy. This thing is just very sugar coated to open up. And like I said, I feel like it gets a little edgier as it progresses, and it saves it a little bit for me, but at 51 minutes, 12 songs, double wax, like you could do without this song. I think, we'll get there in just a moment, but there's a couple of tracks that I think that this could have been a really solid 10-song record. Talk about this a lot, and I'll die on this molehill too. Solid 10-song record, one piece of wax. I'd say that this particular song just doesn't really belong in this track list. It really makes this effort kind of bloated, in my opinion. This is the sound of your voice. Some might say that I like to listen to that. It's funny coming up, but this is a great song. Unique percussion, breezy acoustic guitar with soft textures. The vocal hits to carry, and I love when the bass comes in on the song. It's really nice the way that that's introduced. Big drums when the songs explode. Like I said, I like that, and I do, but there is a moment where it becomes kind of predictable. You do see it coming a little bit, and that would be another minor criticism of the record, is the somewhat predictable nature of the compositions. Hold Me in the Fire is your sixth song. Brings the energy back. I really like the way that this song comes in. Great riff and driving percussion on this thing, and a cool melodic turn in the chorus that I enjoyed. It feels like signature Snow Patrol. It's like I like that familiarity, and the minimal piano that's at work on this track, I think complements brilliantly. It's really nicely done. Years That Fall, your seventh song, keeps the pace. Got this gothic piano. I really enjoyed that. Muted electric guitar, synths that back, and drums that build in, and just a really great moody track. And there's I mean, this is a great stretch of this album. I'd say Hold Me in the Fire, Years That Fall, and then Never Really Tired. This is my favorite song on the record. This song is amazing. Got this driving bass drum, an almost piano that opens. Vocal enters hot, and I love the build-in on the pre-chorus. The snare drum on the song is captivating, in my opinion. And you just you spend the entire song just waiting for it to take off. I love the way it keeps you on edge. And then it goes, like the way the hook just goes, ooh, is perfectly done. And then, like I said, that snare drum, it takes off. And the timing on this thing, it didn't, like, you knew it was coming, but you didn't know exactly at what moment. And it's just little nuances like that as far as the predictability that I think make this song more exceptional than some of the other ones that we were talking about. These Lies is your ninth song. Vocal opens up with minimal piano, maintains balladry. I just love is just pain in reverse is one of the lines in this song. And I really like that line. An exceptional bit of songwriting from Gary. And this song, it's just gorgeous. Finishing off a really solid stretch of this record. What If Nothing Breaks is your 10th song. Gentle atmospheric guitar to open. Vocal hits with sauce and textures that work in and out. Textures to continue to fill and build out on this track. But it's another one that it's not a bad track, but it just didn't quite hit for me. And especially with, kind of an extended track run, I think if you drop this, if you drop your heart home, you got a really just dope, solid 10 song album here. Talking About Hope is your penultimate 11th track, Simple acoustic guitar and piano. Keeps the feel with this gradual textural build. But I enjoyed that aspect of the song. Really nice there. And The Forest Is the Path. Your title track is your final song. Bright, upbeat synth textures. You get the vocal that hits with kind of this, interesting, playful effect that's fun. 80s pop synths that are there, big, bright, kind of ending the way that it opens a little bit with that 80s feel, I'd argue. Bright drums that roll in on the track. It's a great album opener. This is a very solid effort overall from start to finish. But there's those moments, again, where I feel like Snow Patrol retreats, and I would just love to see them get away from that. I'd love to see them, and whenever it is, and, if it takes 10 years, it takes 10 years, but maybe tapping into some of that early energy and just, and it's not that they're not putting it to work, but it would feel nice to just have that continuity on a project. I feel like they've been torn over the years as far as, what do we want to commit to? And I'd argue that it's led to a lack of continuity in records and previous efforts. So this thing, it's worth your time, I think, if you're a fan of the band. But I'm gonna give it a 6.8 out of 10. I'm gonna pass on the Wax, that double LP. I think it's unnecessary. But I hope that you enjoy this record. And if you disagree with me, please drop your opinion in the comments. I always love to hear from you guys. If you have things that that you think that I missed, that you disagree with, I'm human, and I'm not perfect, and I'm not here for any of you to just agree with me on 100% of things. So feel free to chime in. And hope you like this video. Share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2024. And tune into the live show, Classic Wax, on Monday mornings at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern. And we will see you next time on the Beat Sessions.